Good morning to you all. I hope you're well. There was a degree of vaccination boasting a few moments ago. I just hope all of you getting it as soon as you possibly can and you stay well. Tanya, we've had one apology, which is Sean.
That's correct.
Right, and you'll let me know as we go through the meeting if we hit chorus. At the moment, we're not.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Can I just quickly check any declarations of interest for the meeting and the agenda that we've got? Morning, Michael. No, I take that as a no. You've seen the minutes. Can I just quickly go around and check? Does anybody want to raise anything from the minutes? And if not, I'd like permission to sign those off.
Chair, it's Grant Patterson from Grant Thornton. I think on bottom of page 5, where it forms to inform the risk assessment.
Yes.
It makes a reference to 2019, 2020. I believe that should be to 2020, 21.
Oh, well spotted. Can you make that change, please, Tanya? Anybody else got any things they wish to raise? Can I have a quick check then? May I sign these off, subject to the change that Grant's raised?
Agreed, Chair. Please.
Thank you very much. Lovely. So moving on to the next part, we have a matters arising. The only matter arising that I wanted to quickly cover here is I've just had an update from Dan in terms of the replacement for myself. We're on target. Dan's proposing to come back to the June meeting and give a clear update post the mayoral elections as to where we are and what the remaining process is. So all I would say is that I'm content that that's progressing as it should be. Moving on to Chair's remarks. I normally use this section just to bring up to us anything that's I've been actioning in the name of ARAC whilst between meetings. I've got an internal audit meeting later this week, in fact so is RAM, regarding a risk management review. Their internal auditor carrying out a review of the risk management process, and they wanted to interview myself and RAM. So that's work we're doing. I've got a meeting straight after this with I think Tim plus one of the team on the business transformation programme. And I think most of you will have registered that the Chief Executive, Deborah, is leaving to take up a post as Chief Executive of Birmingham. I think one ought to offer her our best wishes because I suspect that's one of the more challenging jobs around in the city. And Tim, I presume you have made it known that you are in fact also leaving.
Yes, it is. I have made it known. I'm not sure how many people on the committee will be aware of that, but I will be leaving the authority at the end of May as well to go to another firm elsewhere.
I assure you the ship is not sinking. This is just what I would call a regular changeover, as you would normally expect within local authorities. We were due to invite Deborah to the next meeting, the June meeting. I've taken the view that with Deborah leaving on or around that point, that's not sensible. Tanya has put into the bring forward system that when the new chief executive has been appointed, we will look for ARAC will look for an early meeting for us to introduce ourselves to that individual and for that individual to come and talk to ARAC. So I'm proposing that we wouldn't have our annual discussion with Deborah this year because she will be on the cusp of leaving at the next meeting. Is everybody okay with that? Good. Thank you. And the other thing I just quickly wanted to raise, I'm going to throw it to Tim. Tim alerted me a couple of weeks ago that the government had advised that it was now going to stop the ability for meetings such as this to occur by Zoom, and that we will be meeting post the mayoral election on a one-to-one basis. But I gather there's a little bit more of an update on that, Tim.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the situation at the moment is as the Chair has set out, that the regulations that were brought in around the COVID situation to allow meetings to take place remotely will expire on the 7th of May. However, there's a lot of pressure has been put on the government around this and saying that it's premature, bearing in mind that social distancing requirements will still be in place, and the difficulty that most authorities will have in terms of finding a venue that is large enough for the larger meetings, such as council meetings, board meetings, to take place in a socially distanced manner. There has been some activity behind the scenes, and the professional group representing both lawyers in local government and the democratic services officers in local government have actually brought proceedings in the High Court for a declaration, seeking a declaration from the fact there are sufficient flexibilities in the Local Government Act 1972 to allow meetings to continue to take place in absentia, if you like, or remotely. That case, as I understand it, is due to be heard this week in the High Court, and in an interesting development, the government have now indicated that they are now supporting that case. So they are effectively also supporting to the High Court to make a declaration in favour of meetings continuing in a remote fashion, should that be necessary. So we'll wait until the outcome of that hearing has taken place, and we hope that it will be sufficiently positive to allow a further period of flexibility. We're also working on what our contingency plans are at the moment in terms of where we could meet if we had to meet face to face, and how we would make COVID safe arrangements. So we're twin tracking it at the moment. So we're hoping for the best and preparing for the worst, if I can put it like that. And I'm sure that a number of people will also be aware of that position from your own authorities. I'm sure you're all in the same boat. So that's just an update, Chair. And as soon as I hear anything, I'll let you know, Chair, and then perhaps we could circulate to the committee.
Thank you, Tim. Anybody any questions? I suspect you probably are all aware of it, but it was worth you just mentioning it. Nobody any questions on that? In which case, I'd like to move to Peter and Sandra on the internal audit annual report. Peter, Sandra, which one of you is going to lead?
It's going to be me. Peter's not here today.
Okay, welcome, Sandra.
Thank you. I'm able to share the screen?
Yes, that's fine, thank you. Actually, while you're doing that, I've just noticed Victoria's put her hand up. Sorry, Victoria, I missed it.
Apologies, Chair. It was just to draw your recollection to our email exchange regarding the forward plan for June, to add the presentation of the new risk management framework to our ACT for endorsement. Thank you, Victoria.
I will come back to the forward plan. I'm grateful that you've reminded me that I skipped over that in my incredible enthusiasm to get to internal audit. Tanya, I'll come back to the forward plan when we've done the internal audit report. Thank you, Victoria. Okay, Sandra.
Thank you. So we're here to present the annual audit report for the Combined Authority for the period 2021. And what the report does is summarise the work that we've undertaken between April 2020 and 31st of March 2021, and express an overall opinion. So if I go further down in the report. So again, our audit work was undertaken between the period of 1st of April and the 31st of March, in accordance with the approved internal audit plan, which, as you'll recall, was amended in July 2020 to take the impact of COVID and make sure that the most key priority audits were undertaken for 2021. And we also, as part of that, we do include, the work of external auditors, the outcome assurance activities, like the single assurance framework, the result of inequality, to internal audit. In terms of overall assurance, as providers of internal audit to Combined Authority, we're required to provide the Chief Executive and the Audit Risk and Assurance Committee with an opinion on the adequacy and effectiveness of the Authority's governance, risk management and control processes. We've considered all the audits that we've undertaken up to the 31st of March. That's audits have been issued as final reports. Any follow-up action taken in respect of audit, and key recommendations not accepted by management and the consequential risks, but we can confirm that all recommendations have been accepted, so none have been outstanding from that perspective. Any limitations which may have been placed on the scope of internal audit and the extent to which any resource constraints may impinge on the ability to meet the full audit needs of the combined authority. So in terms of our overall opinion, whilst we've conducted our audit in accordance with the public sector internal audit standards, based on the work we've undertaken, we can provide reasonable assurance that the combined authority has adequate and effective governance, risk management, internal control processes. And while the impact of COVID-19 didn't adversely impact on delivery, there were some small amendments made to the combined authority's internal audit plan in terms of response to the pandemic. That was in addition of 2 audits, specifically looking at the response to the pandemic in terms of procurement and employee management. And also we delivered all audits remotely, which I believe has worked effectively, and we've worked well with the CA to make sure that the audit plan can carry on and be delivered. So I'll go into the summary of work completed. As you know, we rate every audit as either limited, where there will be serious control failures or breaches of contract procedure rules, financial procedure rules, the constitution, and then satisfactory and substantial. We're pleased to report we've done 13 pieces of audit work up to the date of 31st of March, which the vast majority have been in 2021 substantial, with 4 pieces of work as satisfactory, with a few ambers and several greens, and all recommendations have been accepted by management for implementation. What we've then provided is a summary of each of the a table showing all the audits that we have completed. We've also, which have been reported previously to Audit Committee. Since last reporting, we have issued a final report on harvest time project management arrangements, which I'll come back on to and provide a summary on that. The audits in progress as of today are Digital True Retraining Fund, but a draft report has been issued with a satisfactory overall opinion. We're just in the process of agreeing the recommendations, and that should be going out final later this week. Commonwealth Games Strategic Transport, again, the draft of that should be going in the next few days to our immediate auditee. And then local industrial and economic strategy, risk management and adult education budget are all within field work in progress, and they will come to June Audit Committee. Again, what we've done here is provided a summary. There are no reviews that were categorised as limited assurance. All these summaries have been provided before, so I hope that's okay with Audit Committee if I go down to harvest time, because that's the new one we're reporting on. Bear with me. So harvest time, the project operated by Housing and Regeneration was based on derelict brownfield land at the former site of the Harvest Time Bakery, and consists of construction of a mix of residential units, private rental and affordable housing. On the approval by the Investment Board of £1.5 million worth of grant funding, the project completed in March 2021. So it was looking at the project during its final stages, which does add the value of looking at the lessons learnt. And we made some recommendations regarding project filing, document retention, standardisation of reporting and format, maintaining registers. So essentially it was around the project administration rather than project management controls themselves. And all our recommendations were accepted. Are there any questions at this point regarding the harvest time report? No. Okay. And then we finish off the report with a follow-up reviews completed. This is following the new process where the internal audit liaison officer is leading on the programme of follow-ups, and as and when those arise, we will then undertake our work and issue a report accordingly. And that concludes the report.
Thank you, Sandra. Lorraine, do you want to add anything?
Thank you, Chair. No, just I think really just to comment on the follow-up audits, we are conscious that we didn't manage to achieve that many this year. We have diarised one follow-up per month for 21-22, so the number of follow-ups we should be back up to the level of all the follow-ups completed for all audits from 2019 and 2020 by the end of this financial year.
Thank you, Lorraine. Tim, do you wish to add anything?
Nothing for you to add at this stage, thank you.
Okay, and Louise, since you're representing finance, is there anything you want to bring up?
No, there's nothing I wanted to add. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Just checking, Grant and Helen, is there anything you want to bring up on this?
Nothing specific from myself, Chair. We'll clearly continue liaising with internal audit. I don't think the report highlights any new risks that we need to take on board as part of the external audit. Clearly, we'll liaise with internal audit as work progresses.
Good. All right. Can I quickly check around then, colleagues? Are there any questions or points anybody wishes to make?
No.
Nope, I'm seeing no hands. Okay, thank you very much. What I would say, Sandra, is that the Digital Retraining Fund audit, albeit it looks like it's a satisfactory draft, because it's got 3 ambers and only 1 green. I think this should come back to the June ARAC with the paper so that everybody has a chance to understand what the ambers were.
Yes, it will be presented in full because it has numbers. Yes, we'll do that. Thank you.
All right. In which case, may I sign off on behalf of ARAC as far as everybody is concerned, the annual internal audit report?
Yes. Agree, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, returning to what Victoria reminded me of, which was the forward plan. We've got the forward plan in the pack. Victoria's reminded us that what we will look to do is to include the risk framework in the June session, which I know Tanya will have picked up on now. Are there any other forward plan issues that or subjects that we should be putting in? Anybody got? Tanya, can you make sure you build in to probably the September meeting, assuming that you have a new chief executive by then, the possibility of the new chief executive coming to introduce themselves?
Yes, Chair, that's fine. That's the edit done.
Good. Okay. In which case, we'll sign off that forward plan. It looks like it may well be quite a busy June meeting, so I may well juggle between the June and what we anticipate as a July meeting to make sure that we can cover the topics properly. But I'll let you know about that once we get closer to it. All right. Moving on then to the next topic, we have the draft annual governance statement. Tim, are you leading on that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I'll lead on that, and then Louise can come in as well. So we've collaborated between legal, governance and finance on the preparation of this, although it's down for me to lead on this. So I think this is familiar to members. The annual governance statement is part of the process that we undertake in terms of leading up to the annual accounts process, and it's an annual review of the systems and processes we have in place to ensure good governance within the organisation, and the statement will form part of the accounts when the accounts come forward to be signed off. So this is a draft for the committee to comment on and make sure that you're happy with before it forms part of the annual accounts. So the annual governance statement reviews our arrangements, and in particular, it's in the light of the principles of good governance, which are set out in the SIPFA Solace Good Governance Guidance, which is referenced in the report and the covering report. And again, these are very familiar principles, I think, now. I think I'm not going to take you through all the detail of the statement, because I think, as I say, hopefully it's been published with the papers and members will have seen it. There are no significant changes from previous years. Obviously, there's been a process of consolidation as we move forward with the combined authority. The most significant thing to draw members' attention to is really that during the last financial year, we have adopted the revised assurance framework that was the subject of a considerable amount of work within the organisation. It's obviously been reported through to ARAC on previous occasions. That was adopted by the board last July, and the process of implementation continued thereafter. And I think we're now beginning to see the real benefits of that in terms of more robust assurance and project management, project approvals, and the processes that lead on through to the investment board meetings, and the assurance that leads to those projects being reported to an investment board. So I'm not going to, to present anything further at this stage. I'm very happy to answer questions, and it may be that Louise wants to just confirm any points.
Right, Louise, do you wish to add anything to that?
Thank you, Chair. No, there's nothing I wanted to add. I just wanted to comment really that the annual governance statement is in its draft form, and it's likely that there will be amendments before the committee meets again in June. CIPFA are issuing a bulletin shortly around year end, and so it's possible that there may be recommendations to add further sections around financial management, for example. Thank you, Chair.
Tim, just to be clear then, I think what we're asking members to do is to raise any questions, add any thoughts that they have to us at this stage, but we're not looking for approval or to recommend it to the board at this point. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair. I mean, it'll come back obviously as part of the accounts, but what we want to, because obviously it's an important component part of signing off the annual accounts, and so what we don't want to do is sort of present it sight unseen to the members, to the committee in June, because obviously if you had a major issue with it then, that would be a problem in terms of signing off the accounts. So it's draft at this stage. As you say, it's an opportunity for members to raise any issues or raise any flags if there was a fundamental disagreement over the contents of it, but it will come forward to the process in June. And as Louise said, because of COVID, I suspect, and some of those issues, there will be some further guidance around how we move forward. And I see that Grant's got his hand up as well.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's not a comment on the content per se. It's more in relation to the AGS is a little bit odd in the sense of it's a live document and will need to be signed at the sort of point we share our opinion. So it's more of a practical point of view that clearly you will have a new chief executive come September, probably, when we wish our opinion, and potentially I suppose there could be a change of mayor as well. So it's really just thinking through the practicalities of making sure whoever will end up signing the final version is briefed as well and is satisfied that they have their name to the document. So it's more of a practical observation than a content observation. And secondly, I suppose I have seen a draft, if I'm talking about the same bulletin that Louise is talking about, the bulletin. I don't think there's anything in there that will significantly change the AGS per se, but that should be out very shortly.
Thank you very much, Grant. I'm just quickly checking, are there any other hands? Has anybody else got anything they wish to ask or raise? I don't see any hands coming up. Okay, so what, and in fact, if you remember from last year, because of COVID, we had to keep it current and make slight amendments to take into account what was happening with regard to COVID right up until the last moment. So I suspect in June what we will look to do is to get approval for the chair of ARAC to sign it off at the final stage and give a recommendation to the chief executive of the mayor as and when they are appointed to take it forward. So at the moment, I'm taking the assumption that there's nothing coming from anybody here that is asking for change. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, dear.
So moving on to our next topic, Grant, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I don't know if Louise wishes to introduce it or you want me to go straight in. I'm happy to go straight in.
I think I was planning to give Louise the chance to comment after you'd said.
Oh, right. Okay, fair enough.
Louise, do you wish to introduce this?
No, I'm happy for Grant to go ahead. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. And thank you, Chair. I'm just probably going to talk to, I think, on our paper. It's in the supplementary agenda for members. I'm probably just going to talk primarily. I think it's page 6 on in your pack and page 7, which I think are pages 4 and 5 in relation to the audit plan. So this is the annual plan, our audit plan proposed for 2020-21. I suppose in a similar way, as you just heard the annual governance statement, whilst COVID has impacted on the ability to deliver services, I suppose the fundamental framework or the services that the authority has been providing over the year haven't changed significantly. Therefore, our plan in that sense is very similar to what the committee would have seen in the past in relation to our overall approach. There will be a group audit, and currently we have identified I suppose 2 significant subsidiaries in relation to that, which are Midland Metro Limited and WM5G, and we will be liaising with component auditors for those 2 bodies. And I know that Midland Metro Limited in approval of its accounts got discussed at the previous ARAC, so we will be sending group instructions to those auditors to the work we wish them to undertake in relation to those accounts. And I suppose in terms of the auditing significant risks that we've identified, again, I think because in similar cases last year, where you get your income from in relation to revenue, we're satisfied that we can rebut the risk of that. The risk of material fraud in those elements is low. This year we have had additional focus to look at the risk of fraud in revenue in the actual expenditure rather than income. But again, we're satisfied that given the arrangements that the authority has in place and the nature of that expenditure, that we can rebut that risk. That's a risk for the public sector under Practice Note 10 in terms of we need to look at interpretation of that standard. That therefore leaves us with the 2 significant risks on the audit being around management override of controls, which is a presumption that we can't rebut. And again, having undertaken our preliminary planning work, our focus this year again continues to be on the journals side of the work of the authority, and then again the valuation of net pension fund liability, given both the size of it, the complexity of it, and the assumptions underlying that. I suppose for members who might be expecting maybe from their their work at their other councils, we don't look at property, plant and equipment as a significant risk for the authority. That's primarily because the majority is in infrastructure and that's valued at cost, and therefore the audit approach to that is relatively more straightforward, and we're not relying on assumptions and experts in that sense. So that's why it's not a significant risk. We will be auditing it as a material balance. I suppose just in terms of materiality, again, it's slightly less than last year, and that's purely because we believe that expenditure is the right benchmark for us, but just overall expenditure is slightly less this year at the authority. We are looking at our range that we look at as between 1% and 2%. We've looked to do it around about 1.8% of expenditure. Again, we will revisit that come the year end and what the final outturn will be. And those matters that we have to report to you that are above what we consider to be clearly trivial is close to £300,000 this year. I think in terms of the accounts, one thing just to bring to members' attention, and I'm conscious that come June, there are a number of elections locally, and there will be a number of annual general meetings. We might not have the same members on the committee, so I will discuss with you, Chair, around whether we represent this in June, if you know what I mean, and just to make sure that the new members are up to speed on where we are before we report back in July around that. But in terms of value for money, I think we've gone through the analysis. The area of focus, and we're moving away, I suppose, sort of in terms of significant risks for value for money under the new approach, we still believe will be financial sustainability, and that's based upon the authority has identified its budget challenges both for this year and into the medium and a medium term, and therefore that will be the area of focus for our value for money work. However, we will be doing a commentary across all of the areas for this year's audit. In terms of logistics, as I say, we've undertaken the majority, if not all, of our planning in March, a little bit into April. Our proposal is that we'll be on site in June and July to complete our final audit work. I think we're due to finish around about the first week in July, our substantive audit work, which would probably, from our perspective, and it is subject to discussions with Louise and Linda in the finance team, look to us to have a draft audit findings report ready for us for maybe late July. I don't think I'll be in a position to finalise the audit then, because the audit of the Westminsters Pension Fund probably won't be completed until the end of August, and I need assurance from the auditor of the Westminsters Pension Fund, which I'm sure members are aware is actually myself, before I can finalise the work on that. So we're probably looking at September before we sign off the accounts. I think one thing to draw to the committee's attention is the new standards this year around estimates. That would have come through a little bit last meeting around informing the risk assessment, but the part of that is a developing relationship and understanding between auditors and the committee about understanding what goes into those estimates. And I know in the past we've already had good discussions around the net pensions liability, Chair. I think we've gone through that, but I think it is a developing area. As I say, I think, and that's something we'll work on, I think, with the committee over as things progress. But again, I think the responses we have so far will meet our audit requirements, but we'll always work with you to sort of develop it. But it is a focus area, and there'll be greater scrutiny, I suppose, challenge and scepticism around those estimates. And you have that from all auditors. That's trying to change to the standards, but it is trying to work out that conversation we can have with yourselves, that you understand what's going into the financial statements. And I suppose the final bit is in relation to the plan. It does have a proposal for the fee for this year. And I'm sure members have noticed it is a significant increase, and that is based around those new auditing standards, the continuing challenge from the FRC, and I suppose it is linking that into combined authorities. I suppose given there are a smaller number across the authority, it is, I suppose, trying to tailor it more to the uniqueness of each combined authority. And certainly we've had conversations with yourselves and the finance team in the past around the increasing value for money challenge and the group accounts. And therefore that sort of feeds into the fee for this year. Again, as always, it is subject to review by PSAA, Public Sector Audit Appointments, as holder of the main contract. So that would be going forward to them at a later date, but I'll raise it here now. And I'd probably stop there now unless Helen, I know Helen's on the call, has any other comments to make around the overall audit plan. But happy to take questions.
Helen, is there anything you wish to add?
No, I am here. No, I don't think there's anything I particularly want to add. I think Grant's covered it all. So yeah, nothing from me.
Okay, Ram, before I come to you, I just want to pass to Louise, and then I'll come pick up your question, Ram. Louise?
Thank you, Chair. Just to comment, nothing to add to what Grant's already said, but to comment that I'm comfortable with the contents of the external audit plan, and the discussions around the proposed fees for 2021 will be subject to further discussions with Linda in attendance, of course. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Louise. Ram, would you like to raise your question?
Chair, just forgive my ignorance on this, just understanding it a little bit, that's all, because sometimes there's a technical words go out of my head. There's a word which is in materiality is EY. There's a figure with it. I'm trying to understand, I'm struggling in my head, what it means actually in real terms.
Sorry, Councillor, could you just be a bit clearer?
The materiality, there are two figures given.
Oh, right,
One is, there's a word which is indicated as PY. I do not understand that full word of PY, so I'm trying to understand what actually it is. What's the difference between these?
PY is prior year. Sorry. PY is prior year, so it's what the materiality.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay, that clarifies my mind.
So I thought you were asking around. We have actually three sets of materiality. One you don't easily see. We have the overall materiality, which is the 5.8 million. We then actually have we use performance materiality, which then drives a lot of our testing, which is slightly less, and that's based upon the challenges internally that we believe that the authority might face, and then there's the trivial one. What we do, the material, the one that here is what I suppose in technical auditing terms is what we believe a stakeholder, a reader of the accounts. If there's any, if the differences are above that figure, we feel it could lead to a change of any decision that they might make in respect of the authority. In commercial terms, it's economic decisions, but clearly in the public sector, that doesn't always read through, but it is a decision-making process or understanding. So that's how we set that overall limit. P-wise prior year, so it's gone down slightly from last year, but we will wait and see what the final outturn is before, and then come back to you to see what if we need to change it or not.
Anything else, Ram?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, looking round, are there any other questions or points anybody wishes to raise? I don't see any. What I would say to colleagues is that we've been asked to note these. We are in fact court, so we could approve them, but at this point in time, we're looking to note them because they're not final. They will come as part of the annual accounts that need to be in the June or July meetings that we've got. And any changes, so what Grant will bring forward next time won't be the full paper, but just this paper plus any changes that have been that are being made, so that we don't have to go through and make a comparison as to which bit's been changed. So can I just look round? Are we all happy to note and proceed as been put forward?
Yes, Chair.
Good. Thank you.
Chair.
On the fees one, I've agreed with Louise and Linda that as far as ours is concerned, we will take advice from them, but we would welcome some element of benchmarking against other combined authorities or appropriate comparisons if ARC are being asked to give their approval or comment on that before it goes through to the board. And I suspect that would have been the practice that would have been followed anyway. Louise, do you wish to add anything to that?
No, that's great. No, agree. Thank you, Chair.
All right. So that would suggest that we are unusually done incredibly well on this meeting. I know for a fact that we don't have to ask the press to leave because there's no investigations or whistleblowing updates. So it really leaves me to thank members of ARIC who may or may not be returning to the next ARIC meeting because the election cycle is coming forward for some of you, and to wish you well. I'm going to let the meeting finish early, which will be a record. I don't think we've ever done it anything like as fast as this, but no point in taking up any more time than is needed. Look after yourselves all. I hope to see as many of you. Tim?
No, I was just waving goodbye.
Look after yourselves all, and I hope we'll see as many of you back at the June meeting. All right, and if you're going through the election cycle, try to stay safe and